So, hey guys, today this video is gonna be about the Labour Party. Pretty much one of, if not the worst parties in the modern day ever, or pretty much 2025, because we basically had the Labour Party do some abhorrently terrible shit from pretty much the Online Safety Act, which they started out with, which is supposed to keep children safe and make sure that only adults can access adult stuff. And this literally expands even more because it makes it so that at this point, like pretty much free pornography and anything else, right? And even information has in fact been hidden behind this wall. Making it so that you have to submit your ID to these websites in order to simply verify that you're old enough in order to use them. Which is absolutely bullshit because basically submitting your ID to these websites is extremely shady because you don't know where this ID is gonna go. You don't know what's gonna happen to the data. They could be saying a bunch of bullshit like, oh right, we're gonna delete it as soon as we're done with it, which could be a lie, right? Because they could be secretly storing it on their servers, and who knows, they could be potentially selling that data on to multiple other people. Like these ID verifying services are only made even more popular and even became even more profitable because of the UK government. The UK government just said that we need this, even though we don't, by the way, because it basically makes it so that the internet is not only much more controlled but also even more censored in a way that you cannot even like talk about anything without the government literally slapping a nice you need to verify by using your ID. This is on every single platform, and the worst one to actually get it is pretty much Vimeo, because Vimeo now, right, you cannot access the website no more unless if you have already verified, which is a bunch of bullshit really, because they literally just killed the few amount of people that in fact use Vimeo to begin with, which is absolute none, by the way. But still, though, it's absolutely ridiculous how the fuck that these websites are just literally not only comply, because they have to comply, right, or they get massive fines with it, because apparently it's dangerous if they don't do it without without the ID. Which is absolutely terrible, by the way, because we don't even need it to begin with. We're perfectly fine beforehand, right? But they make something that is so casually sound like a problem just so that they can easily justify it. That felt like as in what the Labour Party has been doing since they have been elected. They've been pretty much trying to make an excuse for a problem that ain't been there, just so that they can submit something that would basically make them collect even more data, and on top of this, make these corporations collect a lot more data, and especially for the ID verification services, because you don't know what's gonna happen to them. They're extremely shady and basically right, and it's all controlled by Ofcom, which is pretty much the worst person to even give it to, because something that heavily supported it based on the current government. So they easily favour wing over based on what is the current government that is elected for some reason. But there's another thing I want to actually, in fact, talk about that is, in fact, a lot more worse, which is so bad to the point that honestly, I don't know why the fuck Keir Starmer decided to in fact do this. Because right after, right, he decided to do a new thing called digital ID. He made, because what happened, right, is that there's a bunch of immigrants inside the country that are living illegally and pretty much doing stuff illegally. And, you can easily forge papers and stuff just so that you could live in the country, quote unquote, legally, even though it's still legally. And, Labour Party wants to in fact crack down on this. And what is the best way in order to crack down on this? Let me guess. Oh right, the digital ID. Apparently we need the digital ID just so we can crack down on people who move to the country illegally via boats and stuff. Instead of in fact improving the border security and pretty much improving the security on waters, especially where they actually come into. And this is absolutely ridiculous because basically, right, the digital ID, right, it makes it so that not only if your driving license and all your government documents are going to be in there, right, but also going to be neatly organized and be basically secured with a single password, which is may sound good, but it's in fact one of, if not the worst things known to man, because all these servers, right, are not in the UK. They're not based in the UK. They are always based in Romania. They're based in Romania, where they are not only the best hackers, but also the best security, like online security and cyber security teams in the world. And this makes it so that Romania is pretty much both the best and the worst place to store it, because right now hackers in Romania and other countries, right, that want to be interested in stealing some of the UK's populations of government documents and such, especially the driver license and the IDs, which can actually be used in order to commit identity theft, could actually, in fact, just can you hop onto these servers, just type in a couple code, and boom, they're already in. Because the security is literally unbearably fucking weak to the point, right, that honestly to God, like I don't even know what is even the fucking point of this, because it's so weak. It is so weak to the point, right, that honestly anyone could just get into it. And trust me, right, what did the Labour Party say to this? They in fact disbanded that. They did the good old option of pretty much ignoring the suggestion and literally disbanding that person's political party, pretty much. Which is pretty much the worst response that you can give, and just show that they do not give a fuck about anyone's suggestion of pretty much improving security. Based on that, is even more worrying that it has to in fact come into place. And you know what Keir Starmer keeps on saying? He's just saying that it's optional, it's not mandatory. But then it proceeds to go into literal detail of, alright, if we do not comply, right, we're just gonna financially fine you until you comply. Because basically, right, what people have to do now is either A, sign up for the digital ID, which will be free and continue to be free without the fines, or B, right, this is the worst option, is pretty much organise your documents together like usual, which would normally be free, right, and just send them over to your employer, who basically, right, will have to make you pay up every single time you have to do this. Basically, so, right, that you have to continuously pay a fine until you listen. Like, this is honestly the worst way to go about it, because this is literally forcing, like, financial, like, because this is literally hurting them financially. This is pretty much hurting the UK population financially and keep hurting them until they comply. Like, this is in fact the worst way in order to do it. And honestly to God, right, this makes it so that a lot more people in fact hate the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn. And even worse, right, their social media is so alienated based on this. It feels as if like, they try to in fact show the good in this by showing expanding on other things, but yet they cannot keep getting away with the bullshit like the Online Safety Act and the Digital ID, which are both equally as terrible because the Digital ID is pretty much stored with a singular password instead of using two-step verification, encryption, and pretty much any more security that we in fact pretty much been introduced since the inception of the single login. Because honestly, right, if you're just gonna move the servers over, right, we just need that as an option in order to just force enable two-step verification. Because honestly, it is absolutely terrible if you don't, right? Because if we're just going to move this service over to, especially to Romania, you know for a fact that the single login will not work because because it's making it extremely weak, extremely fragile, and pretty much right, makes sure that anyone can hack into it. Simple as. But if you have the two-step verification, a complex password, and multiple other things, right, we could actually, in fact, make it so it's a lot more secure, but it still be vulnerable since it's in Romania. What we need, right, is servers in the UK and pretty much controlled by the UK government. We cannot have it controlled by a foreign affair or a foreign country, because controlling all your UK government documents and other things, right, via foreign government, that could be extremely dangerous since, right, that if one day Romania actually in fact hates the UK government or hates something about the UK, they can in fact take down the servers for the digital ID, or they can sabotage the servers, or they can in fact leak what's on the servers to as much people as they want, right? And they could literally make it a lot more worse. Basically, right, foreign affairs could in fact affect the UK now, which is absolutely terrible, which should not be in fact happening. But for the Online Safety Act, right, it's just mostly controlled by people who basically, A, want to make sure they keep quote-unquote the internet safe, even though that's false, and B, they want to make sure, right, that children only don't access these R-rated and these inappropriate stuff, making sure, right, that the expansion of amount of people who get exposed to pornography at a young age decreases, which is what is normally happening, but at the same time, right, it's also showing how ridiculous the Labour Party is. I also want to talk about one more thing before I end the video. At the time of recording this, or basically, I have literally received a letter from the House of Commons, and this is from warinder juss, and pretty much it was written on October 24th, and then October 25th, 2022, and 3 days later it got delivered to me. It says, "Thank you for contacting me regarding the video games and the Stop Killing Games campaign. This was during a time, right, where basically I was having support of start killing games because honestly, God, right, having it within the UK would be a nice, good first step in pretty much consumerism because it makes sure that games would not, in fact, be destructed or pretty much be absolutely destroyed by these video game studios, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I can get campaign, and please do accept my apologies for the delay in responding to you. Australian support the government's back in the video games industry through the creative industry sector plan. To include a 30 million game growth package to support the next generation studios and talent, the establishment of a new industry-led UK video game council to drive sector growth and a new video game skill strategy to address specific skill gaps. So basically, right, they're saying right that, oh right, we heavily support the video game industry and anything to do with the video games via a 30 million game growth package to pretty much not only support teams, individuals, and also studios as a whole, pretty much increasing the growth of games being made within the UK, which sounds good and it looks good. I understand your concerns regarding the discontinuation of video games, especially for the crew. Well, there are no plans to amend existing consumer laws, which should in fact be the case, right? Because basically, right, because currently, right, the current consumer laws, right, basically has a loophole where they could just remove the game and absolutely destroy the game and not give a refund back to the consumers. Department now plans to amend the criminals. The Department of Culture, Media and Sport (DMCS) will continue to monitor the issue and consider relevant work of the competition and marketing markets authorities here on consumer rights and potential consumer detriments. I'm aware that the petition for stocking games reached 100,000 signatures because I mentioned within the email that that I not shown the petition of the Stop Killing Games, but also shown a link to it. So he has everything and all the resources needed. What I mentioned about, and I mentioned about a lot more other things, but this is just one of in fact many things I mentioned. So I'm aware that the petition was argued, yep, which would means will now be considered for debate in Parliament. The debate has been scheduled for November 3rd. So November 3rd, right, we will in fact, right, talk about the Stop Killing Games Act, which hopefully it goes right. Because these people, right, we need to make sure that the Stop Killing Games in fact implements. Because this makes so right that in the future, we will have games, right, that will not be destroyed, but instead, right, will continue to be playable after their discontinuation. This will actually be good for not only for the UK because this way so that the country will actually keep games not destroyed but also keep them in a nice playable act. We also make so that the consumers won't get scammed out of their money like the crew for example. Let's in fact get back to the note. And I plan to attend if my diary allows to represent yourself and speak on your point of view. You can watch the debate live on Parliament TV or read the contributions made afterwards at Hassard. I'm confident that my colleagues on DMCS will carefully consider all views presented during the debate. It's important to note that the video game sellers must comply with existing consumer laws, which is in fact true and they still do, including Consumer Rights Act 2015 (CRA) and the Consumer Protection for Unfair Trading Regulations 2008 (CPRS). However, the UK law does not require software companies to support older versions of their products. This is in fact true because basically, right, it's kind of like an option. Really, it's an option of supporting the older software. It's not really a mandatory, but this is not what we're talking about. Like he's also getting confused with it. Also, what we're talking about, especially for those Stop Killing Games Act, is that just to keep them in a playable act. Just don't keep updating them, just keep it the same as it is. Don't continue support with it, just continue for how it is. Because what it is, right, that people, when they see the Stop Killing Games Act and see what it is, right, they may be thinking, right, oh, right, this could be, right, that they have to continue supporting it even after the discontinuation date, which is totally false, right, because what we basically need, right, is companies and software companies in general to basically make sure that their software works in a working state still after the discontinuation, especially when they go offline from the server side. So these decisions are made by the companies themselves, taking into account commercial and regulatory factors while remaining compliant with the consumer laws. There may be an instance where companies start to discontinue software due to high cost of maintaining servers for games while declining user base, which is, I think, wasn't really the case for the crew. It still had a nice, lively player base for the crew, but but for some reason they want to remove it, pretty much because of copyright or something. I don't know why the fuck they want to remove the crew for some reason. Uh, so yeah, so would you high cost maintain. So if a software is sold without ongoing support, it should be clearly communicated. For example, operating web pages and physical packaging. So this should be a thing that Ubisoft should be carrying on. But what Ubisoft did right was simply sell the game right, and then discontinue the selling of the game. After a couple of years, I don't know, it just kept on selling it digitally. Then from there, right, they decided to just make a huge announcement based on, oh, they're gonna discontinue it, but don't put it on the actual product page for some reason, which is absolutely bullshit, really. So thank you again for content very important issue. As you accepted Parliament, I was working to the issue that meet them. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate, get back in touch. And yeah, I'm in fact gonna happily get back in touch with you, rectify what he actually thought about the Stop Killing Games Act, and hopefully change his mind based on it. Because I want to rectify games have a nice clear mind based on it. Because if it goes into pretty much November 3rd, speaking of the Stop Killing Games Act, right? Within like a terrible mindset or an absolute broken mindset, right? He could literally easily fuck it up, and then you saw right that the Stop Killing Games Act seems absolutely terrible, which in this case it doesn't really sound that bad. I just need to rectify it based on that sentence entirely. But apart from that, right, with the juss, you basically got it nailed on, to be honest. Kind of missed with the hammer a little bit, but you mostly got it nailed on, and I have hope for you that you can actually in fact rectify this. But now, but making sure that it goes deeper into the digital ID and the Online Safety Act, make sure that they actually in fact cancel it, because trust me, both of these should not even be existing no more. So yeah, that's mostly everything that I have to say about this political video. The Labour Party is decreasing, right, but I still have hope in my homie will win the juss. Me and the homies love will win the juss. That's what I'm gonna say. Stay safe, brother.